Hi, my name is Jenna, and I'm going to be starting a vlog series about my daughter, who is 2.5 years old, who was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. This first video, I guess I'm going to try to tell you her diagnosis story, not just because sharing her story, because it's therapeutic, but also because it's really important to get it out to the masses what type 1 looks like, what diabetic ketoacidosis looks like, because my daughter was in DKA when she was diagnosed, and 4 ER physicians in 2 visits didn't catch it, and she only got sicker. Athena was diagnosed at our local children's hospital on January 3rd. She started with a fever on December 25th, on Christmas Day, and she was sick for about 5 days with a fever. Flu symptoms, we just assumed it was the flu, and she was later diagnosed with influenza A. At the same time, she was diagnosed with diabetes. On December 30th, when her fever broke, she started breathing very deep, labored breaths, and it was 24 hours a day. It was non-stop. She started becoming really lethargic, very tired, very thirsty. She started wetting the bed a couple of days prior. It was every night, unless I got up in the middle of the night, which I did maybe twice before I realized it was a waste of my time, because she even had accidents downstairs. My daughter's been potty trained since she was about 15 months old, and we never really had accidents with her. So this was, but I didn't know what diabetes was. I didn't know what any symptoms were. I didn't even think anything of it. I thought maybe her fever was so high, she was lethargic because she wasn't eating. You know, all the things that you immediately go to. It made sense that her fever was high. She wasn't feeling well. She wasn't eating. It didn't seem like she was drinking a lot, but looking back, that's all she did was drink water, drink chocolate milk. She didn't eat very much within like that 10-day span at all. And she didn't go to the bathroom, number 2, that whole time either. So anyhow, on December 30th, I took her to the ER for the first time for that breathing. I thought maybe it was pneumonia. So I took her in, and then because it was the holiday, it was the weekend, our pediatrician wasn't open. Took her in on Sunday, December 30th, and we were discharged with an ear infection, possible pneumonia, and possible UTI. They gave us an antibiotic and said she should start to perk up even by the next day, but definitely within 2 days she should feel better. So the next day she got no better. She even got worse, more tired, more lethargic. She threw up. She just one time she threw up. She was not walking very well anymore. She would complain that her feet hurt. She fell over a couple times. She hit her head one time, and so that's when he said, "No more. You got to lay on the couch." So I ended up taking her back at the advice of the on-call physician through our pediatrician. I ended up taking her back on New Year's Day. Well, it was night, and that time, the first time we were seen by 2 different physicians. I guess the attending, and I don't really know the exact terminology for physicians that work in the ER, but I knew one of them labeled herself as the attending. And then on the 1st, I saw 2 more physicians, and the first one was very kind, but she told me that my daughter had a bad cold and that I needed to give the antibiotics time to work. And that was frustrating, because I know what my daughter looks like with a cold. I know what my daughter looks like with a virus. This was not my child. Something was very, very wrong. She was sleeping so much. wetting herself, all of these symptoms that just didn't add up to me. I knew it had to be something. Anyway, we were visited by another physician just to confirm that I was indeed crazy, and sent us home and said, give the antibiotics a couple more days. She's gotten pretty far off with her cold. They didn't even do a flu swab, which this time of the year, the flu is rampant. Oh, I forgot to mention that first night they did a clean catch. They requested that I do a clean catch. They saw that I placed the cup of urine on the sink in our room and said, they said, we're gonna test that and we'll let you know. And when we left that night, this was the 30th, that urine was still sitting there, but I assumed that they would just test it and then, I don't know, call us, or if I called to get the results or something, I really didn't think anything of it. And I figured the antibiotics were going to work. So fast forward to the January 2nd. It was a Wednesday. My daughter slept pretty much the whole day. I called the pediatrician and requested a sick visit for the next afternoon. I was working, so I couldn't take her in then on the 2nd. And while I still felt that the red flags were going off, I wanted to try to calm myself and say, she can wait till tomorrow, she'll be okay. Maybe we'll start to see her getting better. So fast forward again to Thursday, 1:30. It was January 3rd. And I'm sitting in the pediatrician's office with my daughter, who's in and out of consciousness. I mean, at this point, it wasn't even sleeping. It was just, she couldn't do anything. She couldn't walk anymore. She couldn't talk. She was reduced from a vocabulary of an average 7 or 8-year-old to mumbles and whining, and she's still breastfed, and she could no longer latch, and that's really what threw me over the edge, because if all else fails, she can breastfeed. So obviously all else was failing. The pediatrician came in, and she's a wonderful woman, and she immediately said, do you think she can pee in a cup? I said, I can definitely get her to pee in a cup. That's pretty much all she can do. I have to hold her, but she can go. We got the urine, and within minutes, the pediatrician came in and said, there's a problem. We've got over 2,000 glucose in her urine. We've got large ketones. Has anybody talked to you about diabetes? No, never heard of that. Don't know much about it. I know there's 2 types, and that's pretty much it. One is not curable. One is for those that can cure it with exercise. And anyhow, we were told to go back to the ER, where they promptly admitted us. She was up in the PICU with severe DKA, but her labs corrected themselves overnight, and she was eating by the morning of the 4th, and we were discharged on the 5th with about a day's worth of instructions and a bunch of books and pamphlets and emergency phone numbers and prescriptions out the wazoo. And it has been the biggest roller coaster of my life this last month, to get used to all of the things that come with a child, a toddler if you will, with type 1 diabetes. She doesn't like the shots. I think she's coming around as far as realizing that she has to have them. There's a lot of times where I say, okay, you can have this for snack, but you have to have what we call medis. And okay, I understand. I didn't want to introduce her on this because she's 2.5. She's very distracted and distractible and distracting. So she's napping right now, and I'm in her playroom. So you can see all the happy children things behind me, plus it's got the best lighting. As you can see, I look like garbage, because when you are the mother or parent of, or caregiver of a type 1 diabetic, you have to get up multiple times in the middle of the night. So you have to check blood sugars. And if there's a low blood sugar, you have to treat it. We do juice boxes. And then you have to wait. For my daughter, I've noticed that it's not 15 grams for 15 minutes. It's more like 20 minutes to 25 minutes. I have to wait to see if that 15 grams has brought her up. And we've been having some lows. Not too bad. I don't feel very nervous about them. I just feel like, okay, we've got to get her juice and I've got to wait. So there's the waiting, and then there's the go back to sleep to take a nap, and your alarm goes off again. It's time to check again, and hopefully she's, you know, in her range so you can go back to sleep for another little nap. And I pretty much in the last several weeks have realized that I'm always going to have these lovely bags under my eyes, and I'm always going to be tired. But my daughter is well now. She's gained back some of the weight she lost. She lost 8 pounds when she was sick, between being sick with the flu and in DKA. And in DKA, the body starts using fat cells because it can no longer use the energy that your glucose is supposed to provide, is supposed to distribute throughout the body. So it starts using fat cells, and you lose weight pretty rapidly. And for a 2.5-year-old kid who's not a big kid to start with, she looked pretty emaciated when she was diagnosed. But she's slowly, very slowly, starting to get that little fat right here in her little tummy, and her, you know, some fat back on her body. So that's good. She's not really gaining weight per se. We're also concerned about some other autoimmune issues, specifically celiac, but we have pending appointments with a gastroenterologist about that. So that could be something I discuss even more at a later date. So this video is now 12 minutes long, and if you've hung in that long, congratulations. That's a really long time to sit down and look at your computer. And I guess I will take just a few more seconds of your time to educate on signs and symptoms of type 1 diabetes. Frequent urination, frequent thirst. In little ones, you'll see accidents, especially with, you know, potty trained kids. If your kid's still in a diaper, they might overflow that diaper. Weight loss, that was a big one for my daughter. Oh, goodness. Of course, now I can't think of anything, but those are pretty big ones right there. They don't really have much of an appetite. At least my daughter didn't. Obviously, high blood sugar. If you were to get a blood test, you would see that you really want to see it somewhere in the 80 to maybe 150 range for a little kid. Maybe 120 being like a super awesome number. Anything higher than that is pretty concerning. Anything lower than that is pretty concerning. So that's something that if you are taking your child to the ER, that you can request that they do a urine sample, which they can just dip a stick that takes 15 seconds to see the results, which is what I wish that the hospital would have done for my daughter. But and you can see if they have high glucose in their urine, high ketones. Ketones are something specific to DKA in type 1 diabetics. They are concerning. Okay, so that's 14 minutes, and thank you.